Hey everyone, welcome to this special episode. Our guest for today is Mr. Greg Browder. Mr. Browder is the lead water resources management specialist with the World Bank. He's been associated with the World Bank for the past 25 years. Mr. Browder has been involved in several projects across East Asia, South Asia, and Latin America. Today, we speak to Mr. Browder about the possibilities and the future of IWT in Assam, how the efficient implementation of IWT can change the landscape and the transportation in Assam. Join us for this exciting conversation. All right, good morning, Greg. How are you?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Siddharth. I'm doing well.
All right, super. Welcome to the show. Thanks for giving us your time.
Oh, thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right, perfect. So just to get started on the conversation, if you could tell our viewers today, what is IWT and where exactly does the advantage come in?
Sure. So IWT is short for Inland Water Transport. And I'd like to preface this discussion with noting that I'm a water resources management expert. I'm not an IWT expert, but navigation is a very important part of integrated water resources management. So over the years, I've been quite involved in IWT. And IWT is really important for a number of reasons. Most of the freight transport that takes place in India and many other countries does so by roads. And there's a lot of advantages of shifting from roads to rivers. Of course, it has to be a combination of roads and rivers, but generally in India, as in many other countries, the rivers are underutilized. And IWT has a lot of advantages compared to roads. It's generally cheaper, it's cleaner, and it's safer.
All right. So, because you said that India perhaps may not be using a river to its fullest potential, can you talk to us about some examples of successful countries or case studies where inland water transportation is being used?
Sure. Let me elaborate a little bit more what I mean by cheaper, cleaner, and safer. And then you will understand why many countries have shifted their freight transport more in the direction of inland water transport. So IWT is cheaper than truck transport because it can take advantage of economies of scale. You could put dozens, sometimes hundreds of containers on a ship, whereas on a truck, it's usually one or two. So generally, IWT is orders of magnitude cheaper per ton of kilometer than trucks. Also, in terms of greener, oftentimes trucks account for a large percentage of a country's greenhouse gas emissions. Usually on the order of a third of the vehicle greenhouse gas emissions comes from trucks. I mean, we've all seen these dirty trucks spewing exhaust on roads. And so because of the economies of scale, inland water transport is usually up to 6 times more efficient in terms of greenhouse gas emissions than truck transport. And the same economies of scale also carries over into it being cheaper. It being safer. So we've all seen trucks flying the highways and they're dangerous and frequent accidents. Shipping freight is much safer. There are very few accidents, ship accidents on rivers. So once again, orders of magnitude safer than trucks. So cheaper, greener, and safer than truck transport, for example. Now, many countries, you asked about examples from other countries around the world.
Yes.
If you look at some of the largest economic zones in the world, inland water transport plays a very important role in their multimodal transport system.
Okay.
So let's take Europe, for example. The Rhine River runs through the heart of Europe, through many different countries, taking all sorts of agricultural products, construction materials, finished goods, going to much of it ends up at the port of Rotterdam. So Rotterdam acts as a focal point for import and export of cargo and containers. And if you look at the United States, the Mississippi River plays that role. If you look at China, Yangtze River plays that role. So in more developed economies, actually, there's a higher percentage of inland water transport than many other countries.
All right. So England, US, and China, you mentioned these three specific places. So clearly you're here in Assam working on the river Brahmaputra, right? And that's where the potential, I assume, lies for Assam. Can you tell us about this specific use case? Where does the potential of Brahmaputra come in for IWT and it being a part of the multimodal transport network for the growth of Assam?
Sure. So the Inland Water Authority of India has designated the Brahmaputra National Waterway number 2. National Waterway number 1, of course, is the Ganga River. So the importance of the Brahmaputra for IWT is well recognized by the government of India. And the potential here is enormous on the Brahmaputra. Much of it has just been, tapped to just a small percentage of its potential. But let me outline some of the ways IWT can be used in Assam.
Sure.
And I'll break the discussion down into 2 parts. First, let's look at passenger traffic. These are basically ferries that take people. As we know, the Brahmaputra is a very large and wide river with adjacent floodplains, and the road network adjacent to the river is not very well developed. Okay. And although Assam is building a number of bridges now across the Brahmaputra, still there's a lot of traffic that has to go across the river. Right. So both up and down and across the river, there's a demand for people to use inland water transport. So inland water transport now in Assam, it's a very important part of the passenger system in Assam for people getting from point A to point B. So that's one dimension that needs that can be developed further in Assam. And in fact, the World Bank is financing an inland water transport project with Assam to help improve the passenger ferry facilities, among other things. Okay. So then we have the other side of IWT, which is transport of freight or cargo. And the Brahmaputra can play a very important role in this. As everyone recognizes, the Northeast is somewhat geographically isolated from the mainland of India. So IWT offers the potential to reduce the transport length and cost by going through Bangladesh to the mainland of India, much more efficient than going through that narrow land corridor between Nepal and Bangladesh. So that's one thing. It can link with the rest of India. Okay. Another potential for inland water transport in Assam is access to the sea. The northeast of India is isolated from the Bay of Bengal. So routes to the sea can be opened up through Bangladesh. So you can grow your import and export business by linking with the sea. Okay. And the third part of IWT is there's a lot of construction material in the mountainous regions of the Northeast and in Bhutan also. They can generate stones and aggregate and other building materials, which is exactly what Bangladesh needs because they're poor in those types of construction materials. Sure. So transport of construction material is another potential opportunity.
Okay, so there's passenger movement, there's cargo and freight, and there's construction material. All of this coming via Brahmaputra while making it cleaner, greener, and safer.
Yes, exactly. Compared to truck transport.
Right. So all of this sounds good and healthy, but I'm assuming there's of course some somewhere there's a con. There's some is there some drawbacks to this? Is there something that you're always working on as a contingency? Some of the constraints perhaps working over Brahmaputra?
Yes, I think constraints is the right way to frame the challenges, because as everyone who's ever seen the mighty Brahmaputra, it's a wild river. It changes course frequently. In dry season, it's very braided. The water level is very low. And then on the flip side, in the monsoon season, it's a raging river overflowing its banks with high velocities in the water. So the first constraint or challenge that has to be overcome if you really want to tap into the potential of the Brahmaputra is navigability. And this is where the water resource side comes in, my area of specialty, because there are different ways of addressing these navigation challenges. The other constraint is the development of infrastructure to support IWT. Even if you could solve the navigability problem, then you would have to address the infrastructure. So there's a need to build more ports to handle the cargo, to upgrade the shipping fleet, things like that. So it's both navigability and the lack of infrastructure that are the constraints.
Okay, so because you mentioned earlier about the US and about China and England, of course, one of the questions that, of course, I want to understand is, are there specific learnings from the successful use of or implementation of IWT, that specific pros that would be implemented in Assam over the Brahmaputra?
Sure. Just to clarify, in terms of the global experiences, it's Europe. The continent is Europe.
Right. It's Europe.
Yeah. So the Brahmaputra is a very special river. So and you'll have to find tailor-made solutions to addressing the navigability of the Brahmaputra. So let me first talk a little bit about some of the things we're trying to do in the Brahmaputra to make it more navigable.
Right.
And then we can talk about how other countries also, because it's a very special river, Brahmaputra. And it's special because of a couple of things. One is you have the very high heavy monsoon season. The northeast of India is one of the rainiest places in the world. And you have the Himalayan mountains. So you have a lot of sediment coming down from the Himalayan mountains, which then creates a lot of sand and sediment in the riverbed, which causes the river to shift over time. And the high monsoon season results in flooding, and the wet season, and then during the dry season, very low flows. So that's really what makes the Brahmaputra special among all the other rivers that I mentioned. So some of the ways that these navigation challenges can be overcome. The first is to really understand how the river works. And each river works in its own sort of unique way, and this one is very special. But the starting point is always understanding the river morphology. Morphology means the shape and the location of the river.
Right.
And it's constantly shifting in the Brahmaputra. But nowadays, there are advanced modeling techniques, advanced analytical methods for forecasting how the river will change over time. So it's not a precise science, but it's much better than just guessing. They'll say, oh, we can make informed decisions about the future of the river.
Okay.
So river morphology, understanding river morphology is one area. The other area is nowadays we can also forecast when the floods will come,
right?
With much greater precision taking a look at weather forecasts and using advanced modeling, can predict 3, 5, 10, even 14 days in advance what the floods will look like. Of course, the longer duration, the less precise the forecast.
Right.
But it's no longer the black box that it was a generation ago. And can also forecast what the low flows will be, potentially what the water levels will be. And then the third part is you have to constantly survey, particularly in the dry season, the river bed.
Right.
Where is it? Where's the best channel to follow? And then by understanding river morphology, doing better forecasting, hydrographic surveys, during the dry season, you can utilize smart dredging techniques to know where to dredge to open up a channel in the dry season.
Right.
And instead of blindly going out and moving the sand and the sediment, because there's unbelievable amount of sand in the river, if you use your knowledge of the river and you do smart dredging, you can really work with the river, reduce the costs, and let nature help chart the channel in the future.
Right.
So those are some of the techniques that you could apply to the Brahmaputra.
Okay.
And these have been learned from other countries, but then adjusted to fit the specific situation of the Brahmaputra.
Okay. And any specific cases from Asia or Latin America that apply here?
Sure.
Or are the learnings all same across the globe?
So in terms of dealing with this particular type of river system, there are other rivers that are comparable in characteristics, but not in size. For example, the Irrawaddy in Myanmar. In the past, the World Bank worked with Myanmar to help develop their inland water transport system. And the Irrawaddy River is just one river system over from the Brahmaputra, so the same characteristics. And then moving over further to the west, the Mekong River has the same sort of characteristics, and the Red River in the north of Vietnam also. So I think one should look for rivers of similar characteristics to deal with the navigability issue.
Right.
But then there's a lot of generic lessons from other places in the world that we can apply here. Like it's really important to have river information system so that ships and their captives, as they're flying the river, they get the most up-to-date information. They know where to go, what the river conditions are. And then for rivers that cross country boundaries, for example, in the Rhine River, I mentioned, it flows through many different countries in Europe, or the Mekong River flows through 7 different countries in the Mekong Basin. So to have international agreements or protocols to help ensure that the freedom of navigation, or to facilitate navigation across borders. And so fortunately, India and Bangladesh have a long history of cooperation on IWT. They've signed a number of protocols.
All right.
But the tough nut to crack, and what they have to address the navigability issue.
All right. So just to wrap the conversation, and because you mentioned the specific characteristics of Brahmaputra during rainy season, that it gets out of control and it's a raging river. Disaster is a very generalized risk, but is a very serious risk. What kind of role do you think disaster risk management plays in protecting people living along Brahmaputra and its tributaries? If you could shed some closing statement on that.
Sure. Assam's abundant resources are both a blessing and a challenge. The challenge is during the monsoon season, you have a lot of flooding and riverbank erosion. So that's the challenge. But we should always keep in mind also the benefits of this abundance of water resources. Assam is uniquely positioned in India due to its abundant water resources. And this will help the Northeast in general develop its economy in a sustainable way. For example, you have tremendous agricultural potential, lots of groundwater, plentiful water for industrial and municipal purposes. And of course, the water provides the water in the rivers for inland water transport. So we should always think about the Brahmaputra as a blessing, and then try to deal with the flood and river erosion risks the best way possible. And I think the modern way of looking at flood and river erosion risk is not to stop it or control it, but to learn how to live with it and to reduce the risks, the overall risk. The risk at the end of the day, someone's house will be flooded or they will lose their land to erosion. So the way you can do that is through a number of structural and non-structural methods. Structural methods means constructing embankments and also strengthening the riverbanks so they don't erode as quickly. Yeah. But that's the only part of it. There's a whole set of non-structural methods that are more in the domain of disaster risk management, which you mentioned. And these include things like flood forecasting, early warning, emergency preparedness, and then when a disaster does strike, to respond to it, provide emergency relief for people, allow them to move out. Some of them go to shelter, some of them move to other places, but really facilitate that emergency response. And then afterwards, you have the challenge of restoring these people's livelihoods and building back better so that the next time a flood occurs, they're more resilient, and also providing them financial resources to recover from this type of shock.
All right. Okay. Ending on a positive note there. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Browder. For those of you who stayed all the way through the end, thank you so much for joining us. This is Siddharth signing off. Very glad to have heard from Mr. Greg Browder on all of his wisdom and knowledge. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Siddharth.
See you soon. Until next time.
You know, I've been working in Assam for 5 years now, and I really enjoy working here. Not only are the people lovely and the culture very rich, but the Brahmaputra, to work on the Brahmaputra as a water resources specialist, I considered it a real privilege. So thank you for this conversation.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your wisdom, sir. Thanks.